In today's video, we are going to be getting the Platinum Trophy for Star Wars Outlaws, a game that many players, including myself, were absolutely hyped for. I mean, who doesn't want an open world Star Wars game? Some players were let down though, whether it be by the story or by the gameplay, and there were a ton of bugs and glitches at launch that in some cases locked players out of progressing, along with the biggest issue for trophy hunters being an unobtainable platinum. Well, since then a lot of work has been put into making Star Wars Outlaws better for the players, and while it's still not completely perfect, it is far better than what it once was. Saying that though, all of the gameplay you see in this video was captured at release and has just been sitting on my PC ever since, and so all of the improvements that have been made won't be shown here, but just know I have had a little go recently and can confirm it is much better. Anyway, we have a lot of ground to cover ahead of us, so I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into the video. We begin the game with a cutscene where we see numerous agents from different factions all seated around a table with one noticeably more important man named Sliro, who turns out to be head of the faction known as Zerek Besh. He tells the rest that while the Empire was at war with the Rebellion, this was a perfect opportunity to make millions. However, wasn't too happy at the fact that one of the factions had sent a spy into Zerek Besh. He then goes on to talk about his childhood and his dead brother, you know, the same old sob story, before eventually ordering his men to kill the other faction agents.
I'm starving. It's time to eat.
We then cut to the main character of the game, Kay Vess, along with her little pet Merkel, yeah, whatever this thing is. He is named Nix, and we are at a bar called The Broken Hoof. We head downstairs and talk to our friend and owner of the bar called Bram, and he hands us our broken data spike after finding it being sold by some scrap rat that found it in the 6th kin turf. Yeah, in case you didn't know, Kay is just a little bit of a thief and overall troublemaker. Anyway, now our goal was to go and get our data spike repaired so that we could steal some identity cards to get us on board a shuttle so that we can leave Canto and head to one of the core worlds. Unfortunately, Preben wasn't willing to help us, as he was already worried that the 6th kin would find out he told us the location of their vault for the identity cards, and there was a lot of heat surrounding us. Of course, credits will always find a way to change someone's mind, and to seal the deal, we tell him if he helps us one last time, he'll never see us again. So now we had to get our hands on some credits, and the easiest way to do this? Gambling. Well, if you can actually call it gambling. You see, we ended up meeting a man outside who told us the location of a data pad with the name of the winner in an upcoming race, and even convinced him to give us his credits so we could definitely place the bet for him and not rob him blind. So after we got the information and a few more credits, we headed over to the local betting table and placed a bet on the supposed winner. 3, 2, 1... go. We're off. Come on, Owen. Oh my god, he's right in front. This is what we like to see. No, blue and yellow's catching up. Yellow's in front. Come on, green, you've got it in you, buddy. You've got it in you, Owen. Don't let that information go to waste. Come on, Owen. Come on. Yes, he's getting in front. Oh my god, he's taking the lead and he's won the race. And we got a trophy against all odds, our very first trophy of the game. I'm assuming that is for winning our first bet. Now let's go and pay Preben. With credits now in hand, we head over to Preben, get our data spike fixed, and then make our way into Club Tarsus. Once inside, we tell one of the guards that their speeder is getting jacked, allowing us to get access into the club's office, and from here we break into the club's vault and steal the identity cards. Of course, this wasn't a smooth job, and we end up tripping the club's alarms, leaving us having to fight our way out of the club. After escaping though, we head back to the bar, but shortly after getting there, 6th kin was searching for us and decided to come in and start wrecking the place before shooting Bram in the leg. Don't worry, he survived, but obviously he doesn't really want us about anymore, as he doesn't want the trouble, and so gives us the details on a high risk job that should get us enough money to leave Canto. From here we meet up with the crew we are going to be doing this heist with, and then find out that we are actually breaking into Sliro's mansion and robbing his vault. Yes, the same guy from the beginning of the game. Once at the drop off point, we make our way across the cliff until we reach the mansion, at which point the rest of the crew makes a distraction, allowing us to sneak inside, hopefully without being noticed. Thankfully this game allows us to be stealthy, and with the help of Nyx's distractions we are able to successfully get inside the mansion unseen. Once inside we continue to be super duper stealthy and make our way down to the vault, disabling the security along the way. Once inside we use the password override the crew gave us to open the vault, but it instead opens up another door revealing a prisoner called Toshara inside, and it turns out that he and the crew were actually part of the Rebel Alliance. Of course we came here expecting a big payout, and so we demand what we came here for. However, the rebels weren't having any of it and they just put us to sleep instead. We then get a flashback of when we were a child with our mum teaching us how to become a good thief. However, we get caught and then of course our mum was nowhere to be found. Well, after we escaped the guards, it turns out that she was just chilling back at the bar and basically said it was a lesson we had to learn, in that we can't trust someone is always going to be there. I mean, look, I get her point, but she's still our mum and we were like a little kid, so surely she's supposed to be there for us. But you know what, that is a conversation for another day. We then wake up to find the rebels gone and Sliro in front of us. You see, he thinks that we are part of the Rebel Alliance, but before we let him have the chance to torture us, we decide we are getting the F out of there, and we do this by stealing one of his ships and jumping to the planet of Toshara. The ship was damaged during our escape though, causing us to crash land, bringing an end to the game's prologue.
We're okay. We're okay.
Not to worry though, we did in fact survive the crash landing and even found a snazzy jacket to wear. Making our way outside for the first time though, we find a mechanic and then instantly get jumped by some bandits. However, we do get introduced to the adrenaline rush ability, which is essentially Deadeye from Red Dead Redemption, and we put an end to them rather sharpish. The mechanic tells us his name is Wacker and that should we get the credits to buy the parts, then he will help us fix our ship. And to do that, he points us towards the Pike Syndicate that should give us some jobs to earn said credits. Thankfully, we don't have to walk all the way to Mirigana City though, as the ship we stole had a speeder and getting on it for the first time unlocks us the trophy, made it somehow. We make our way over to the city, and once there we manage to sneak our way into the Pike Underboss's headquarters in an attempt to meet him and get some jobs. Well, we do meet him, but we made the mistake of mentioning Wacker's name, guessing he's not very fond of our new friend, and because of this he refuses to give us any jobs himself. Luckily for us though, as we are leaving we meet someone called Danka who can provide us with jobs for each of the different syndicates, those being the Pikes, Crimson Dawn and the Hutts. Now for the most part, while quite a few of the jobs on Toshara count as main quests, they don't really provide any useful story information. They are simply there as a way of introducing us to the main factions of the game and how to increase or decrease favour with each of them, as well as teaching us different game mechanics, the abilities to upgrade our equipment and speeder, and of course how we can earn credits for the parts we need to fix the ship. Because of this, I'm not going to go in depth into what we had to do for each one, as we would genuinely be here for quite some time. But to give you a brief example of what these jobs consist of, we typically find ourselves infiltrating other syndicate bases to either sabotage something or to steal something, like equipment or data. There are also jobs that we get a little bit later related to smuggling cargo, but most of the time it just involves stealing. One of the jobs were pretty standout though, and it had us flying out into space to an Imperial fuel station with the objective of sabotaging Imperial debt records for the Crimson Dawn. We did manage to do this successfully and actually got introduced to a Bognok, which was one of the Imperial bookkeepers, and he wanted off of the station, so we had to help him escape, but being basically just a head in a jar, we had to do the majority of the work. We did manage to get him off the station though, and then took him back to the Crimson Dawn on Toshara. No trophy for this, but again I did find it pretty cool, so thought I'd mention it. Even though we didn't get a trophy for that job though, I did manage to actually nab a few trophies while doing all of the jobs that we had to take on. The first was the Like a Bantha trophy for performing a perfect landing with the speeder. Don't actually know how you get a perfect landing, but I did it and I got a trophy for it. The second was the Stay on Target trophy for completing my first intel chain. The third was the Get Rhythm trophy for picking 20 locks with the data spike. And last but not least, we unlocked the Good Listener trophy for listening to the longest sob story in the galaxy. And I've got to say, it was a pretty upsetting story. It actually broke my heart a little bit.
That's terrible. Maybe leave?
My ship fell into a ravine. But thank you for listening.
Eventually, after getting enough credits to buy the parts that we needed, Waka tells us that we need one more before we can leave Toshara and start travelling the galaxy, and that was a new nav computer, although this one couldn't be bought and we would instead need to obtain a power core from one of the Imperial compounds, which wasn't actually too hard and I pretty much just stealthed my way through the whole section, and then we needed to take that power core and use it at the massive wrecked ship located nearby to get inside and get what we needed. Now I've got to admit, I actually thoroughly enjoyed this section. Although the ship was well and truly wrecked and we spent most of the time just climbing and trying to get the ship powered up to progress further, there was just something about it that I just really liked. I can't actually put my finger on it, but the whole atmosphere, seeing different parts of the ship in complete disarray and walking through its dilapidated rooms and hallways was actually just so cool to me. Eventually we make our way to the bridge, but before we could get our hands on the navcom, we are ambushed by Zerek Besh agents, which is odd because the only other person who knew where we were was Waka. At this point he had acted a bit sus at a few points, so I had a feeling he might have actually betrayed us, and it turns out we were right, as once we get the part, he then attempts to kill us because he wants the ship. He did however swiftly get his comeuppance though, as the Zerek Besh bounty hunter he gave our location to then kills him. Before she gets a chance to kill us though, we end up pressing some buttons on the computer which causes the ship to start falling apart around us, giving us the chance to make an escape. We do end up running into a dead end, but just before the bounty hunter can get us, we are saved by a mysterious droid who tells us to run, and so we do exactly that and head back to our ship as quickly as we can. Once we do get back though, we find a man and that very same droid waiting for us. This man is Jalen Vrax and the droid is ND5. You see, Jalen's here because he has a job for us. In fact, it is the heist of a lifetime. He wants us to work with him and ND5 to put together a crew and break back into Sliro's mansion. Only this time, instead of rescuing members of the Rebel Alliance, we'll actually be stealing the 157 million credits worth of Beskar ingots in his vault, which I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty damn good to me. He definitely doesn't seem like the most trustworthy guy out there, but we agree anyway. This does however mean we have completed the last main quest on Toshara, and we get a trophy for doing so. With the main quests on Toshara now completed and with a new goal and a new companion, it was time to recruit the crew members we needed for the heist. The first member I went for was an expert safecracker called Ankh that could be found on the snowy Ashiga run planet of Kajimi, although exactly where she was on the planet was unknown, so we decided to head to the local bar to see if anyone knew of her whereabouts. On the way though, seeing as it was pretty chilly and we hadn't eaten for some time, I decided to stop off at a local food stand to grab a bite to eat with Nix. Now there is a trophy for visiting each of these food stands on each planet, but at the time I had no idea this was even a trophy and just did it for the immersion purposes. And immersed I was. I mean, just look at this little guy eat. After grabbing some foodage, we then headed to the bar to see if we could find Ankh, but get told that she was in debt to the Ashiga and because of this had been taken to one of their factories to work with not really any chance of getting out. Of course this meant we needed to go and rescue her. We started searching around for some information pointing towards where this factory might be, and while we didn't get the info we were looking for, we did find out the Crimson Dawn had stolen an Ashiga relic, and thankfully ND5 knew where the Crimson Dawn were based, a private club called the Wellspring. Now getting into the Wellspring wasn't too difficult and I managed to stealth my way through the whole section without getting caught. However, getting out didn't go as smoothly. I got caught right after I took the relic, and this then meant I had to fight my way out. Can't lie, this was a tad bit difficult as there were just so many enemies and I did actually die once and then the game crashed right after, so that's nice. Avoiding death and another crash though, I did manage to make an escape and took the relic back to the Ashiga Queen. Can't lie, they didn't seem very appreciative of our efforts in getting it back for them, but the Queen did agree to let Ankh go if we helped the Ashiga clan further. At this point we just needed to wait for someone from the Ashiga clan to contact us, and so we took this time to go back and speak to ND5. Here he hands us a holo tracker belonging to a man named Jet Kordo, a Trade League Alliance member. Holo trackers are used to find vaults that other members use to store contraband. Some, however, he decided to take off the grid, and this holo tracker and discs were the key to finding these hidden vaults. Much like with the food, there is a trophy tied to finding these vaults, but something I again didn't know at the time and didn't actually actually do until later anyway. After speaking to ND5 and upgrading our blaster, we get a message from Krisk, the daughter of the Ashiga Queen, and she tells us to meet her at the cantina if we want Ankh, and so we headed straight over there. Once there though, we find out Krisk actually wants to work with Crimson Dawn to overthrow the Queen. Krisk and a few of the other Ashiga believe that the Queen is going to run the Ashiga clan into the ground, as she already sold out the clan to the Empire, with Ankh being a key player in the deal they have together due to the weaponry she can create. Krisk and Kira wants us to help them put Krisk on the throne so that the Ashiga will be free, and in exchange we get Ankh. And as a gesture of goodwill, she gives us something to help us rescue Ankh. Now from here there's not a lot to talk about. All we did was break into a weapons factory and get past a ton of guards to find her. However, after managing to fight our way out of the factory with a load of her bombs now in tow, she tells us that she doesn't want to take on the job as she plans on taking down the Queen. Jalen tells us though to not give up and to keep helping Kira deal with the Queen. Then that should help us earn Ankh's trust, and hopefully she'll reconsider joining the crew. From here we work with Ankh, Kira and Krisk to break into the Ashiga stronghold, taking out as many guards as we can along the way and disabling their security systems. And while doing this we manage to unlock the trophy, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, for disabling an alarm using a security terminal while the alarm is active. We also eventually get our hands on something called the Origin Strand, which apparently holds the design of 1,000 generations all planned out by the Ashiga's ancestors. Regardless of what we have though, we are given a choice to give it to either the Queen or to Krisk. Of course, judging by what Krisk said earlier, the Queen was never going to let Ankh go free, and the Ashiga were going downhill pretty rapidly, and she wanted to take over so that they may be free from the Empire and so that they could eventually become great again, and so I chose to give it to her. Krisk does then become Queen of the Ashiga, but I can't lie, I didn't expect her to just straight up kill her own mother to do so. That's none of our business though, and our job here was done. Ankh then agrees to join our crew for the upcoming heist, and we get the one job at a time trophy for completing all main quests on Kajimi. With these main quests completed though, I can now move on to the next planet, with that being the planet of Tatooine. We went here with a goal of recruiting a heavy known as Hoss. Again though, much like with Ankh, we have no idea where he is, so we end up landing at a nearby town in the hopes of finding out more information. We end up finding the local sheriff named Quint, and after watching her take down a group of Hutt thugs like it was nothing, she gives us some information on whereabouts Hoss might be. We head over to the moisture farm where he was supposedly hiding out, however we don't find Hoss and instead find a dead bounty hunter. Thankfully he had a transponder on him and was currently tracking the man we was looking for. Turns out he was being held captive by some Tusken raiders. However, they did agree to let him go if we headed over to a nearby cave and retrieved a dragon pearl from the bandits that had stolen from them. Very easy to do. We went to the cave, killed everyone inside and retrieved the dragon pearl. The Tuskens kept their word and released Hoss, who then told us to meet him in Mos Eisley and then we could leave. We head to Mos Eisley and wait for Hoss at the docking bay like he told us to, but he never made an appearance. That's because he was too busy gambling in the cantina, and of course he wasn't doing a very good job of it. Seeing as he doesn't have the credits to pay the winner though, he instead betrays us and gives them nicks. We did try to put up a fight but ultimately end up getting knocked out, sending us into another flashback. In this flashback we are once again with our mum stealing something, and where Kay first finds Nix. Of course Nix starts chewing on some wires, causing the alarm to go off and causing us to lose the score. Of course though, since then Nix has been at our side ever since. We then wake back up and question Hoss on the location of Nix before knocking him out. Turns out Nix was taken to Jabba's palace to add to his collection of exotic creatures, and so we head straight over there and break in. It wasn't massively difficult, although I did get caught once or twice, causing me to have to restart the checkpoint, but overall it wasn't too bad. What was quite cool though is we actually get a little cameo appearance from Boba Fett. We don't actually hear him talk, but we do see him, which again I thoroughly appreciated. Eventually we make our way down to the menagerie, kill the Beastmaster and then rescue Nix, and where ND5 shows us he may be a little bit softer for a droid than he lets on to be.
I know, never gonna happen again, okay buddy? Come on, let's get out of here. ND5? I got him.
Is he hurt?
No, I don't think so. Wait, were you worried about him?
Make your way out, quietly. If you're found, no one will be able to save you.
We then start trying to find our way out, however get distracted by a frozen Han Solo and get caught by Jabba and his men. Turns out though Hoss and the bounty hunter Vale was also here too. Jabba had apparently agreed to let Vale take us in exchange for bringing him Hoss, but it looks like he wasn't sticking to that agreement and instead drops us into his beast pit where we see Hoss get eaten, which I can't lie, he totally deserved. We then work with Vale to fight our way out of the pit and Jabba's palace, and eventually come face to face with a Rancor and technically our first boss fight. We don't actually get to kill it though, and for the most part just spend our time trying to avoid it, but we do end up using the explosive barrels to piss it off enough and bait it into charging at the hangar doors. Thankfully the plan worked and it did open up the doors, however we are quickly recaptured by Jabba's men again. Jabba wasn't pissed at us though, in fact he was actually thoroughly entertained with the show that we put on. However, he will only allow us to leave Tatooine alive and keep Nix if we work for him, which to be fair is a no-brainer, so we agree. He tells us that there is a Zerek Besh spy in his palace, and so he wants us to break into the Bestine compound and find out who. Although Vale is left a little bit confused, as the Bestine is under Imperial control, so there shouldn't be any reason why they would know who the spy is. At this point it kinda gives you the idea Zerek Besh may be more than just a criminal syndicate, and may actually have some sort of ties to the Empire, although to what extent we don't know. With another quest completed though, and having successfully escaped Jabba's death pit, we do unlock the trophy, Making Friends. From here we head over to the Imperial compound with Vale and sneak our way inside to steal the data. Once we get the data though, we notice Vale confronting a Zerek Besh soldier, asking him why they are working with the Empire, although she doesn't get any answers and instead kills him, causing the alarms to go off and leaving us having to fight our way out of the compound. We end up escaping by taking some speeders, but just when we think we are in the clear, we get ambushed by an army of Imperial troopers. Can't lie, it wasn't looking good. There were like 2 of us against over 100 of them, but thankfully ND5 comes to the rescue and we manage to make our escape. We then get a little cutscene where we see Sliro offering one of Jabba's men the opportunity to one day take over the palace in exchange for information on us, but that's pretty much all we get. From here we turn the data we found over to Jabba, he clears our debt and we are now free to leave Tatooine, and Vale also decides to let us walk free, as I'm assuming she realises that she may be being used by Sliro. This does mean though we have now completed all of the main quests on Tatooine and we once again get another trophy. Rather than heading straight onto the next planet though, I decided to focus on getting my skills up a little bit by finding and helping out some people known as experts. Apart from the story related experts, each one has 1 or 2 side quests for us to complete for them, but once we do, we have the opportunity to learn a total of 6 abilities for each. While we don't need to learn all of the abilities, we did need to complete all of their quests for a trophy later on, and we also needed to collect a couple of abilities for certain collectibles and certain other trophies. And so to save on doing them all in the cleanup stage, and the fact that some of the abilities will actually come in handy during my time through the rest of the story, I did decide to complete some now. Not going to go over what we had to do, but just know we recruited a Jawa hotfixer, Ayla the slicer, Rooster the mercenary, and Quint the gunslinger. With some expert quests out of the way though, it was now time to head over to the planet of Akiva and recruit the final member we need for our crew, a droidsmith by the name of Gadik. ND5 suggests finding a gangster named Surat at the local cantina in the hopes of getting some information on Gadik's location. While making our way through the cantina though, I did get the opportunity to use Nix to pickpocket a customer, and because I had done this in a cantina on each planet now, I unlocked the trophy Easy Pickings. We then meet with Surat and he tells us that Gadik is at an Imperial research station, or at least should be if the Hutt cartel hasn't got to him first, and so we waste no time at all on making our way over to the station, during which we managed to get the trophy, adventure and excitement for discovering all areas on each planet. Not sure how that's possible, as I'm sure I hadn't been everywhere on each planet yet, but it's another trophy, so no complaints from me. We reach the research station, sneak our way in and find Gadik, although he was very wary of us and almost killed us because he knew people were out to get him. We managed to convince him though that we are one of the good guys and he agrees to help us out. While he would be making his own peaceful way out with his Imperial credentials, we had to now fight our way out. This wasn't too bad though, as we did get the trophy right back at you for defeating a total of 20 enemies using items fetched by Nix. Before he could help us out on the heist though, there was a certain Viper droid problem he wanted to deal with, and in order to do this we needed to get our hands on a hydro repulsor for our speeder. Thankfully he had a friend called Temin who was able to hook us up, and after getting a couple of more parts from some local gangsters, the hydro repulsor was all good to go. Gadik then tells us to meet with his contacts in the forest to deal with the Viper droid. However, once we get there, all we find is a crashed ship before getting ambushed by a Viper droid. This threw us into some kind of like mini boss fight, but honestly it wasn't too difficult at all. After taking it down, we find out Gadik's contacts were actually rebels. Of course, given our track record with the rebels, we wasn't too happy about working with them and initially said no, but eventually we did have to give in. After all, we did need him. We then made our way over to the Imperial facility and snuck our way inside, where we then disabled the defense grid, allowing the rebels to launch an assault when the time was right. After that, we then met up with Gadik, where he told us that we are going to retrieve the Alpha Viper droid and reset its protocols so that it works for the rebels rather than the Empire. Obviously, this was going to take some time, and so we had to hold off against incoming Imperial troopers so that Gadik could do his thing. And thankfully, ND5 also came to help us out. During the fight though, ND must have taken some damage because he starts acting a little bit odd, although he was able to keep pushing forward. We end up meeting up with the rebels, and after cleaning out quite a large number of Imperials, we hand over the Alpha droid, ending the quest and earning us the trophy Spiked. After escaping the Empire though, it seems like ND5 was looking a little bit worse for wear. He starts malfunctioning, and Gadik theorised it's his compound regulator failing, basically his power core. Gadik does also tell us that we could actually take this opportunity to be rid of him, seeing as he was programmed to shoot us if we go against Jalen's plans. But you know what, we actually like this droid, he's a pretty chill guy for the most part, and so Gadik tells us of an old factory from the Clone Wars that could hold what we need and that Temin could help us get there. We find Temin, save him from getting blasted from a hired gun, and he leads us towards the factory. As we made our way further inside though, it's obvious that ND just wasn't going to make it if we took too long, as he was deteriorating rather rapidly. But I can't lie, I kind of wanted to take my time here because I just thought it was so cool to explore a droid factory and seeing all of the old droids from the Clone Wars. It was just a lovely throwback to the first 3 movies, which I haven't actually seen for such a long time now, and I can't lie, it kind of makes me want to go back and watch them all again. As we make our way through the factory though, we do find ourselves slicing into a few terminals, and we actually got the trophy Slice Like You for slicing a total of 20. Continuing to make our way through, we eventually discover Zerek Besh have followed us in, and so we waste no time in heading back to Gadik and ND5. Turns out though, someone else had reached them first. However, it wasn't Zerek Besh, but in fact the rebels. Apparently this was a secret base, and to top it off, the leader of this base was the guy that we were tricked into releasing back at the beginning of the game, and was the reason that we now have a death mark. He tells us they can repair ND5, but in exchange wants our help in rescuing some of their men that the Hutt cartel had taken prisoner. You know the guru from here. We head to the location, we kill the Hutts and free the rebels, and thankfully the rebels kept their word and we could save ND5.
Up to the couplings. Quick, but not too quick.
Kenny, you've got it backwards.
Andy?
It's a miracle he lasted this long.
Gadik!
Let go! Okay.
Thankfully, ND5 was okay, however we now had a bigger problem. We needed a top tier slicer for our crew, and Jalen thought it would be a good idea to bring along our mother as well as the rebel Isara. Of course, we wasn't happy about this in the slightest, but it wasn't our crew, and so we had no choice but to agree. This does bring an end to our final main quest on Akiva though, and we unlock another trophy. At this point it was almost time to pull off the heist, but before we could do that we needed Sliro's master passcode for his mansion, which, believe it or not, he kept on his person, so this was going to be a little bit more difficult than we had imagined. Luckily though, Jalen knew where he was, and that was with the Empire, currently brokering a deal between them and Zerek Besh, so it was our job to infiltrate the ISB and steal the passcode from him. We also learned that the reason Kay hates her mum is because she left her when she was 12 years old, with literally no explanation and nothing but a blaster and a casino chip. Jalen also tells us about his childhood and that his family built ships on Corellia before he became the only survivor, which, funnily enough, Sliro had told Vale the same thing earlier. Coincidence? Well, we'll just have to wait and find out. ND5 also tells us that he's sorry for Jalen recruiting our mother and that he's disappointed, which is just another reason why I love him. He's a droid that is just supposed to follow orders, but he still has a soft, almost human side to him. Anyway, we end up meeting up with our mother, and even though we're against her coming with us, we unfortunately need her in order to get in and get out of the ISB alive. So with much reluctance, we get on the shuttle with her and make our way to the ISB. Getting through this section was kind of like the other times we had infiltrated an Imperial station, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, just know that there was a lot of stealth. Eventually we end up making our way to Sliro's meeting room, where we find him threatening Vale to finish the job in capturing us, and we get an unexpected surprise.
Well, this is a surprise. The Emperor has my report. Zarek Bear's Syndicate has infiltrated the underworld into the farthest reaches of the galaxy. We are on the verge of uncovering the rebel network. This is an unqualified success for the ISB.
Zarek Besh has not found a single member of the Rebel Alliance.
That's nonsense.
Without rebels, Zarek Besh is a failure. You, Director Barsha, are a failure.
Failure? The ISB has created the most groundbreaking intelligence network the Empire has seen, and accomplished more in weeks than the entire Imperial army. An army whose mindless show of force allowed a rebel fleet to escape from Hoth. It is the ISB that will win this war. I'm so close. Lord Vader.
Then I suggest you find some rebels, Director. The Emperor is waiting.
Ready my ship. Now.
Yep, that was an actual jaw-dropping cutscene for me when I saw it. Vader just seemed so menacing, and I loved the fact that he made Sliro cower like a little bitch. What was even more interesting though, and honestly something I kinda saw coming, was that Sliro was actually an ISB director and created Zarek Besh in order to infiltrate the underworld and capture members of the Rebel Alliance. Anyway, with Sliro now making his exit, we take the opportunity to sneak into his room and retrieve his master codes, and also get the trophy into the mainframe for slicing a total of 10 advanced terminals. From here we make our way back to our mother and make our escape from the ISB unnoticed, unlocking the trophy the director for learning Sliro's secret. We end up making our way back to Canto and meeting with the rest of our crew, telling them the bad news that Zarek Besh is just an Imperial front and that Sliro is a director in the ISB. Something which Jalen knew all along and failed to tell us about, which of course we wasn't happy about, but we've come this far so there's no point turning back now. And so now it was time to start the heist. We do try to convince ND5 that after the heist has been pulled off we could use Gadit's freedom spike to break him from Jalen's control, but unfortunately he sticks to the old "I'm loyal to Jalen, I will be forced to shoot you" speech, which we don't believe in the slightest, but whatever makes him happy, I guess. From here, much like we did at the beginning of the game, we infiltrate the mansion and make our way down to the vault. However, we once again end up tripping some sort of alarm, which did end up drawing the attention of Sliro's men, and we then have to hold out against a ton of soldiers, allowing our mum to slice the door and Ankh to use her explosives. Sliro and Vale also end up making an appearance, and just as we think Vale is going to shoot us, she turns on Sliro, taking out his men, and then decides to work with us and help us escape in exchange for a cut of the hall, which we agree to. With Vale agreeing to help and major score in hand, we then fight our way through the mansion and casino to make our escape. Of course though, it was too good to be true. Yep, turns out there was no hall, and it was actually Sliro's data bank containing an absolute boatload of information on the Empire, as well as some personal blackmail on pretty much most of the high-ranking officers. And to top it off, Jalen had promised it to the rebels, or at least that's what he told Toshara. Turns out he was lying about that too. Jalen's plan was to take over Zarek Besh, using it to make millions and gain high ranking and favour with the Empire, and only after that would we be free? Of course, this wasn't what we had agreed to, but it didn't matter anyway as he gets ND5 to knock us out. We then get another cutscene of the moment Kay finds out her mother has left her, and we get the trophy Eye on the Score for completing all of the main quests on Canto. We end up waking up in a cell, but thankfully Ankh and Gadik manage to steal a shuttle to come and rescue us, mostly thanks to our mother telling them where we were. I mean, fair enough, you did good, you told people where we were, but you could have come and helped us yourself. Instead, you just left. Turns out we were now on a Star Destroyer they called the Revelator, and even though Ankh and Gadik vote that we should just leave, we say we aren't going anywhere without ND5. So now we had to go undercover as a stormtrooper with Gadik acting as our prisoner so that we could find ND5 and use our freedom spike to break Jalen's control over him. Gotta say, this was actually a really cool section, and honestly I just would have loved to have had the ability to disguise myself as a stormtrooper more throughout the story, or just to be able to disguise myself as other things in general rather than sticking to like the same outfit all the way throughout. We end up finding Sliro and decide to join his escort with the hopes that he will lead us to Jalen and ND5. Jalen ends up confronting Sliro, and it's here that we actually find out that they are brothers, and that Jalen had already made an agreement with Darth Vader in which he would get full control over Zerek Besh. Turns out this was just one big revenge plot, as we find out that the reason why Sliro thought the rest of his family were dead was because he actually sold them out to the Empire long ago, but to his surprise, Jalen survived, and so not only did Jalen now take what he had since worked so hard to build, but he would also end up losing his life to him. At this point, we then kind of blow our cover and demand that he lets ND5 go, which of course he wasn't going to do, and now ND5 was hunting us down. Even though he didn't want to, it was still a pretty intense and, might I say, even scary moment. At this point, in order to free ND5, we needed to overload the ship's deflector shields and lure ND5 straight into the burst of energy that's released in order to stun him, allowing us to insert the freedom spike.
I'm sorry, Kay.
Me too! Andy?
Kay!
I didn't think you had it in you. They made those BX units tough. Blast her.
No.
Not bad. I'll take this.
You okay?
Never better.
Good. Because I can't breathe in this thing.
Yeah baby, ND5 is free, and Asara too I guess, and with Jalen now dead we decide now is the perfect time to get out of there, and so we fight our way through an onslaught of stormtroopers until we reach the ship and manage to escape. Even though we have the opportunity to jump away, we notice that Asara was having trouble warning the rebel base to evacuate, and so we decide to instead stay and fight against the Empire, hopefully slowing them down enough to allow Asara to warn the rebels. And we also sent out a distress beacon with the hopes of calling in a few favours. From here we have a massive dogfight in space against numerous TIE fighters, and when given the opportunity, laying down fire on some of the Star Destroyer's cannons, during which we get the trophy Never Tell Me the Odds for defeating an enemy ship without dealing the finishing blow with lasers or missiles. Gonna be honest, I'm not entirely sure how I even managed to get this. I'm assuming that I just did enough damage to one of the ships and one of the rebels or another ship managed to take it out, because as you can see, I didn't ram the ship, I didn't do anything to any ship apart from shoot the one in front of me, and then the trophy popped. So yeah, I don't understand how I got that, but I'm not complaining, it's another trophy. Bam bam. Eventually, Asara manages to contact the rebels, with some of them even coming to help us in the fight against the Star Destroyer, and we also get help from the Crimson Dawn. At this point though, with the backup we need, we are able to bring down the ship's shield generators and destroy its reactor, bringing the Revelator to the end of its journey, and bringing you guys one last cutscene, as I think this is better played out than me talking about it.
Picking up internal explosions and a chain reaction in the Revelator's ion drives.
Never thought I'd see this.
Me neither.
Let's get out of here.
Look, just saying. What I've pulled from the Codex, Jalen was right. We can't tip the scales against the Empire.
Oh, you're serious?
We got lucky.
Taking out the Star Destroyer for no money is lucky?
We could use you, Kay.
I think I'm done being used. Just be careful out there, Sarah.
What about you?
Danke danko. Ventaminor luna de tabola, ginuma. Titokitas legaton.
That's too bad. I think I got the job. Lots of droids and casinos.
Troy ubakava pagwa.
And safes to blow to pieces.
Okay, ubanolea.
You two have fun. But I'll bail you out when you mess it up. I figure I owe you one.
So are you picking up their tab, or am I? You still want your room?
Just keep the lights on, Bram.
As long as you need.
Was wondering when you'd show up. Just here for my 20%. 10. But how about something better? I thought the Codex was lost in battle. To everyone else. I figure there's enough secrets in there for someone to start their own business. Just don't forget me when you rule the underworld. Could use a partner. Already got one. But hey, I'm easy enough to track down, right?
So, where do we go next?
Anywhere we want, Andy. The best slicer in the galaxy, caught for using March credits. Jalen Brax was clever, wasn't he?
I see you read my file.
10 crews in 9 years. No home, no family, and absolutely no attachments. Except for one. You have any idea what this is?
Cheap bet at the father track?
A tracker. A strong one, too. Custom build. I'd say at least 10 years old. Whoever built this wanted to know exactly where their mark was at all times. Makes sense. You can't trust someone's always gonna be there. But that's what makes it matter when they are.
Not bad. For an Imperial.
I'd say this one needs a bit more time to think about what she's done. On me, Trooper.
Yeah, absolutely insane ending, and I have to say I was thoroughly impressed. But we will save what I have to say for the end of the video, as now we have quite a big cleanup stage to take on. For the first trophy, I decided to tackle what I thought was going to be an easy trophy, only to end up spending over an hour trying to get it, and that was for getting the high score on any arcade game. Now, if you look on YouTube, most guys will say that the Raven 6 arcade game, where you basically just have to shoot ships, is the easiest one to do this to earn this trophy. But you know, your boy didn't look at a trophy guide and so chose the hardest one possible. The game itself is simple, it's just get to the end, picking up the speed boost and avoiding the obstacles to try and get there as fast as possible, which at the beginning isn't too bad, but towards the end the obstacle placements just get absolutely ridiculous. I was getting seriously stressed with this, and I would have my live commentary over the top of this footage, but believe me when I say YouTube would absolutely destroy my anus for the amount of swear words coming out of my mouth. I think I was having a breakdown, but eventually an hour later we get the trophy to pop, and it was nothing but tears of happiness. Oh, for God's sake, man. Come on, maybe we can still do it. I've never done that perfectly. What the fuck? Did we do it? We fucking done it. There is no try. Oh my God. Oh my God. We've done it. Oh, I've actually got tears coming from my eyes. I need to compose myself for a minute. How long has this taken? 58 minutes. Oh my. Oh man. It's done. It's done. After nearly having what felt like an aneurysm getting that last trophy, I then decided to do a few of the easier ones, which was essentially just collectibles, and thankfully there wasn't a ridiculous amount of them to get. For the first trophy, I made my way around to the remaining street food vendors I hadn't yet visited and treated myself and Nix to a little bite to eat until we eventually unlocked the trophy Galactic Gourmet. The next trophy was the Got You Something trophy for collecting all 15 Nix treasures. I did collect quite a decent amount while just exploring throughout the story, so thankfully I didn't have a massive amount to get. I will be honest, to make this easier, I did find a guide online as to not waste too much time, but even getting them without a guide is easy enough, as Nix will actually try to grab your attention to follow him. Eventually though, after about 40 minutes, I did pick up my final treasure, unlocking another trophy. And for the final collectible related trophy, at least for now, was for acquiring the Scoundrel gear set. With the holo tracker and discs ND5 gave us earlier in the game, we can use them to visit each planet and search a number of Jet Kordo's hidden vaults. Some of these just had credits, crafting materials and such, but some held parts of the Scoundrel gear set. There are only 7 vaults to find, and the fact the holo tractor will let us know when we are close to one meant this stage didn't take a hell of a lot of time. Eventually, we did find the final vault holding our final piece of Scoundrel gear, unlocking the trophy. It's mine now. Now, I know that I said the last trophy was my final collectible related trophy for the time being, and technically it is. While this next trophy did require us to get a few collectibles in order to finish it, I couldn't actually finish off the collectible side of it until they had patched the game. This is because we had to find and retrieve a number of collectibles from these yellow containers in space. Of course though, there had to be one that was bugged, preventing us from actually picking up the final collectible we needed, so instead I just picked up the rest now while waiting for the patch to come out. Picking up just a few of these though did give us the ability to recruit our second to last expert, which was the Veteran, a BX commando droid that was actually a droid from the Clone Wars, however had been damaged long ago and had been stuck in the same spot ever since. Obviously ND5 orders him to stand down, deactivating him, and in the process we get access to his decoder module, which then gives us access to the Veteran expert skill line. But we still had one more expert to get, and this expert was the High Roller, who turned out to be the man, the myth, the legend, Lando Calrissian. To complete his quest, we first had to win a token back that he lost in a Sabacc game back in Kajimi. Now, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of how it's played, but I gotta say, I actually really enjoyed playing Sabacc, and thankfully this wasn't the last time I would be playing it, as there was another trophy involving Sabacc that I would have to get a little bit later. Thankfully, we managed to win without much trouble and got back Lando's token. Then we needed to head back to Akiva and help defend him and a group of rebels from an Imperial attack. After doing so though, we give him back his token, unlocking our final expert and unlocking the trophy. Experience outranks everything. Next up, I decided to focus on getting my Syndicate reputation to max for each of the Syndicates for their respective trophies, as well as the trophy for reaching the lowest possible reputation with one of them. This meant we had to take on a hell of a lot of jobs or contracts for each of them. Thankfully, we needed to complete 40 for another trophy anyway, so my hope was that I would also get that done during this stage. Not going to go into massive detail, as I already said earlier in the video what these jobs typically consist of. They did take up quite a bit of time, but during this time I unlocked a total of 13 trophies. The shoot first trophy for defeating 6 enemies with a single use of adrenaline rush, something which could only be done by learning one of the expert skills given by Quint. The How Rude trophy for blinding 30 enemies with Nyx attacks, the Don't Get Cocky trophy for defeating 5 enemies with adrenaline rush while on a speeder, the Think I Had a Choice trophy for reaching lowest possible rep with a Syndicate, the Cloak and Dagger trophy for reaching max rep with Crimson Dawn, the What You See Is What You Get trophy for reaching max rep with the Huts, the Might Want to Buckle Up trophy for flying into space with a fully upgraded ship, the No Match for a Good Blaster trophy for fully upgrading a blaster module configuration, the Cutthroat Politics trophy for reaching maximum rep with the Pikes, the Give Me the Good Stuff trophy for buying an item from a merchant's VIP stock, the Queen's Word is Law trophy for reaching max rep with the Ashiga clan, the Galaxy Drift trophy for performing a 30-second power slide drift, and finally the Honest Work trophy for completing 40 contracts. As I said, this took me a good few hours, but I was smart and used the time I was spending on these to knock out a few of the combat related trophies, and thankfully I was able to both find and purchase certain materials and parts needed to upgrade my ship and blaster, knocking out both of those trophies in the process. The only thing I would say about this stage of the Platinum was just how repetitive it started to become, mainly because, like I said near the beginning of the game, most of these jobs just consist of stealing or sabotaging something. Don't get me wrong, it was easy, but I just wish there was a lot more variety to the contracts that we could take on. But with a bunch of trophies out of the way, it was of course time to earn some more trophies. And so next I decided to get my final 7 combat related trophies out of the way. The first was the It Wasn't Me trophy for bribing an Imperial officer to clear a level 5 wanted level. Next was the They Live Up to the Name trophy for clearing a wanted status by completing a Death Trooper confrontation event. Basically, once you reach max wanted level, the Imperials will then send out Death Troopers to hunt you down, and they are pretty damn powerful, but if you manage to take them out, your wanted level is reset. Third was the Sometimes I Amaze Even Myself trophy for defeating an enemy ship after doing a loop maneuver. Next was the Heavier They Fall trophy for defeating a raider to clear a wanted level, very similar to the Death Trooper event trophy, except this one is in space. For the next trophy, we needed to take out the capital ship for each of the 4 syndicates without taking hull damage. Now, having a fully upgraded ship makes this significantly easier, but it can still get a bit dicey, so my recommendation would just be to ram into each one of them until you can take them down with 1 or 2 shots from the ship's lasers or cannons. That's because doing this does damage to their ship while leaving your ship unscathed, and apparently they don't care if you do this because they don't even shoot you for it. Now for me, the hardest part wasn't even taking them down, it was actually getting the Ashiga capital ship to spawn in the first place. For some reason, no matter what system I went to and how many times I travelled back and forth, it just didn't seem to want to spawn, and I can't lie, I spent about 3 or 4 hours trying to get it to spawn before I actually found it, and then to take the piss even more, when I destroyed the ship, the trophy never popped, meaning I either didn't destroy one of the other ships without taking hull damage, or I didn't destroy this one without taking hull damage, which honestly I know was just bollocks because I didn't take any damage at all. And I can't lie, my patience really began to get tested at this point, as I didn't want to potentially have to spend another 4 hours trying to get this ship to spawn. I didn't have much of a choice though, and so I started searching for the other capital ships again, this time doing each of them twice just to make sure I 100% didn't take any damage. And after taking down the Crimson Dawn ship for now, which would have been the 3rd time, the trophy punching up finally popped. This was an absolute blessing to see, as by this point a good 5 hours in total had gone by and it was actually starting to do my nut in. My guess is that the trophy doesn't track properly, and whether they fixed it or not by now remains a mystery. So for any of you going for this game's platinum, if you run into a similar issue to me and you are 100% certain you took no damage, it could just be down to the game itself. So just keep trying and hopefully you will get it. Finally, for my last 2 combat related trophies, these ones were significantly easier. First was the Into the Darkness trophy for destroying 10 enemy ships in the Kajimi Nebula, and the second was the I'll Bet You Have trophy for defeating 20 enemies distracted by fast talk. This brings us to my final 2 trophies of the game, excluding the platinum, with our first of these 2 two trophies being the no such thing as luck trophy. For this, we needed to cheat and win a Sabacc game against Lando. Now at the time, I thought you had to do all of the other high roller tables to be able to play him, and then he invited you to play, but it turns out all you actually needed to do was complete his expert quest, which we did actually do earlier. Now I don't have footage of me playing the other high roller tables, but I do have this one. We did need a couple of expert skills to be able to cheat in Sabacc, but once we had them, we was able to cheat, and once we won the game, we got the trophy. Which brings me to the final trophy of the game, and that was the trophy for acquiring the Disruptor gear set. Now, if you remember earlier, we had to collect some little yellow boxes in space to be able to recruit the veteran droid expert. Well, collecting all of these yellow boxes is what's required to open up a secret vault containing the gear set. Now, I played and recorded all of this footage on release, and at the time there was one of these yellow boxes in space that was just unobtainable. You couldn't interact with it at all, meaning you couldn't get the final piece of intel you needed to locate the vault, which was an absolute pain in the arse, as I had no choice but to wait. And it wasn't until over a week had gone by before the devs actually patched it, allowing it to be collected. Eventually though, the update came out and we was able to pick up the yellow box containing the intel we needed. This took us to a secret vault on Akiva, and inside we find a chest containing the Disruptor gear set, finally unlocking the old school cool trophy and the game's platinum. Okay, we can't go through there. Here we go, here's the container, boys. The moment we have been waiting for, the game's platinum. Is it actually going to give it to me? There we go. Old school, cool Disruptor gear set. Come on, platinum. Yeah, baby, Outlaws. The game is finally done. I only had to wait like, what, 10 days, but it's done. Well, now time to come off the game and probably uninstall until the DLC comes out. And so with that being the game's platinum trophy now achieved, here are my overall thoughts on the experience. The story, at least in my opinion, was pretty damn good. While not the most imaginative or groundbreaking out there, I still enjoyed it. Sometimes I do feel like certain parts were a bit rushed and would have loved to have seen more things expanded upon, but for the most part it was pretty decent. The gameplay overall was good. The combat, the stealth, the ship combat, everything in regards to that felt enjoyable. The one thing that wasn't as enjoyable though was the actual missions themselves. There were some standouts and most story related missions were interesting, but there was definitely a lot of copy and paste just in different areas, which I feel could have been improved upon, something which you could definitely see when taking on the contracts. For me, they were quite a big letdown. At first it was pretty cool taking on jobs for different crime syndicates, but after 4 or 5 you realise that for the most part you're just taking on the same missions just in slightly different areas, and there isn't a hell of a lot of deviation. I guess I expected more actual crime committing, being an outlaw and all that, but for the most part the game just has you head into different syndicate bases and camps or outposts with the goal of stealing something or sabotaging something. Obviously there are slightly different ones here and there, but they are the main kind of goals and objectives during these contracts, and while stealth wasn't always necessary to get through them, they were definitely made with being stealthy in mind, or at least they wanted you to kind of focus on being stealthy while going through them. On a lighter note though, the different planets, environments and cities we could explore felt amazing, and you can tell a lot of time and effort was put into creating them. Always wanted to explore Tatooine and Mos Eisley, and with this game you can actually do that, which I just felt was really damn cool. It's much like what I said with Mirage. Ubisoft may not always make a great game, but the world they create and the locations within those worlds always amaze me. Like, they always do a fantastic job on them. It's just a shame it doesn't necessarily always carry over to the actual game and gameplay itself. Obviously there were a lot of glitches and bugs at launch, but thankfully since release a lot of those have been fixed, the key ones being progress bugs and trophy fixes, and the overall gameplay itself has been improved to an extent with little quality of life additions, like being able to actually carry a weapon other than the standard blaster and not drop it every time you climb a cliff or talk to an NPC. Little things that should have been in the game from the very start but wasn't, but hey, it is better late than never. Overall, I would rate this game, just main game itself, a 6, maybe 7 out of 10. It's not perfect, it's not everything I wanted in a Star Wars game, but hey, they tried and they didn't necessarily fail. Would I recommend this game as a game that you should get the platinum for? Absolutely yes. But anyway, this does bring us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, then a like and share would very much help me out. Comment down below games that I should cover in future videos, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn notifications on to stay up to date with everything I upload. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video.